Alright, guys, so I'm just gonna do kind of a quick and dirty Game of the Year awards for 2024. I deliberately wanted to wait till after January so I'd have, like, obviously the full 2024 done, but then also like a month, up to a month, to catch up on any of the games that came out then. And I would have done it actually probably like a couple weeks earlier, but I was sick, so I kind of delayed. But anyway, yeah, like I just have it all here, so there's no like, you can just like go ahead and like look at everything. Obviously, if you don't want to listen to me, you can just mute and just look at everything. I got a couple down here that doesn't all fit on one page. This is just up here for like some of the games I played and just as a visual. But yeah, like the general format is, like I said, like, to me, a Game Awards should be the entire year, January 1st to December 21st or 31st. So, like, you know, like the Game Awards that like Jeff Keighley hosts are like complete bullshit because they leave out a month and a half or 2 months of some of the biggest releases of the year. So it's like, it's crazy. And then not only that is like, again, yeah, like you if any of those games that are even coming out anywhere like from October to November, then like you might not even have enough, people wouldn't have enough time to even play or beat. So like their opinion on what the game of the year is and all these awards are like, it completely like compromises and ruins it. So that's a terrible format. And then I also like put, like, I want to acknowledge the own holes in my format, which is, I mean, I'm a single person doing it, and I put a lot of hours in. Like I played 45 games this year. I played almost 1,300 hours of games. It's a lot but like, as much as that is, like, I just physically, it's not possible for one person to play every single game. So or like have the time or money to do it. And so it's more likely to just completely miss a game that's deserving to be on there. Like I didn't play Black Myth Wukong, or I didn't get to play Final Fantasy Rebirth. Like those were like a couple big ones, but so it's likely, you can miss games like that. But then the benefit is that you're also not biased to be pressured into playing every single mainstream game and like only having time to play the mainstream games. It's like you get to play what you want to play, so the opinion's more likely to get like smaller or just more obscure games that are actually like really great. And yeah, like my number one is Yakuza Infinite Wealth, and that one isn't small, but clearly, like, from talking about it or for listening to podcasts and stuff, a lot of reviewers did not even play that game. And because, like, also that's like another issue, is like or like a benefit slash issue with those two things, is that a game like that, like, it has like a big barrier to entry, because, or a seemingly big, it's not in actuality if people actually just tried, but like, because it's the 8th game in the franchise, like, people feel like, oh, I gotta play like 8 or 7 of these other like 50 to 100 hour games even just to start this one. Really, you just had to play the last one, like 7. But even that, like, will like stop people like feeling like they have to play the last game in the series. But yeah, like, also, like, the benefit of just me being like by myself, like, with this, is that, I have no bias to like getting like review codes. Like, I've never received a review code. Obviously, I'm too small to do that, and no sponsors or anything. So no fear of getting like fired because I'm not doing this for money. I get literally $0. and yeah, and like the some of the other things are it should include games, only include games that I played unless like a category uh, doesn't require that, like visual fidelity. Like I don't need to, like I can look at 4K gameplay footage of Black Myth Wukong to see that it looks amazing, and even though I didn't play it, but I can't put it in my game of the year because I didn't play it. So like I don't really know how good it is. Um, and then I also have the criteria of DLC and expansions are not, they're only eligible for their own categories, like the best DLC category, because that's not like a standalone game. That's like if you have to buy a completely separate game in order to just play that thing, then that's not a full game. So like it shouldn't be nominated. And then even if it did, like it's based off of a game that's usually a year or more older. So it's like, how can just a little bit of an add-on like all of a sudden make something eligible? So you're just going to nominate like the same game for Game of the Year over and over again? That's insane. And same with like remaster that's not a new experience. That's not like a significant update or where you just like up-res it or add like reskin and the resolution or add some frames. Like that's not worthy of a new thing. But I do, so those aren't eligible for anything. And then but full remakes are eligible in their own categories, but only where they add something like new over the original. Because yeah, like say for example, Resident Evil 2 is a great example of an actual like full remake, where the gameplay in the original is like terrible, and then the new gameplay is actually good, and then the graphics are obviously like way better. So like that could be nominated in a graphical category. And but like soundtrack though, like and like voice acting in most of the remakes are usually like just the same audio files. Maybe there's like a remastered a little bit, but it's like the same thing. So if I had a category of like best performance or whatever, like that wouldn't be eligible. And like same with like soundtrack, I had if Persona 3 Reload was a brand new game, it would be number one here. But it's just the same exact soundtrack. It's an amazing soundtrack, but like, you know, they just ported over the soundtrack from like a multi-year-old game. So like that's not adding anything new. So yeah, I'll just like kind of go over things quickly. Like again, for the most part you can read, but like I don't have too many categories. I did some ones for fun here. You could see like best villain, best girl, best dude, the worst bro. But like yeah, I'll just kind of go over like the bigger categories and my reasonings for like ones that just aren't obvious. So yeah, for Yakuza Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth is my number one game for game of the year. Metaphor, Unicorn Overload, Indiana Jones. So like yeah, I thought this was like hands down Yakuza was number one, and 2 and 3 were really close for Metaphor and Unicorn Overlord. And Indiana Jones was really great too. That one surprised me. I didn't expect that to even be like, I just thought it would be, you know, like a decent game, but it was like really good. And the reason why Yakuza Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, I liked it so much. I mean, it just has everything. Like, there's so much content. Like the characters are all like super well developed and likable, well, and hateable. Like I have them a lot in my villains list too, and like best dude, and yeah, like the main character is Ichiban. Like I have him number one as the best dude because like he's like this game solidified that he's on like this isn't an exaggeration. He's the most likable fictional character ever created. Um, yeah, I mean, you just have to play the games like it's like through like Yakuza 7 and 8. It's just like so that's a big part of it. And then like yeah, just there's so much you can do in this game, and the gameplay is great. Like there's literal full on other games within the game. Like there's a full on Animal Crossing type game, like side game. There's a full on Pokemon game where you go around and you like collect like all the guys you defeat, like all the battles you go through. You basically collect them as a Pokemon, and then you like fight them against each other in a completely different game format. And then, and of course, on top of that, there's just like a ton of mini games. Some of them are like new original ones. Like this, there's like a bicycle one. That's like you're basically like a Uber Eats bicycle driver, and then. Yeah, there's like a bunch of recurring mini games, and there's just standard games you've come across in other games. You know, you could play like mahjong, poker, blackjack, all that kind of stuff. There's like a casino in the game, and then like yeah, just like the job class. There's like the whole job class system is really great. It's like it's got all these crazy ass moves and like summons. You get all the like ridiculous summons that are just hilarious. And yeah, like this one, just like 7, it goes like back and forth between like really good, well written, like just genuine, like heartfelt stories where you're like social or like social issues and like character stories, and then it'll just like all of a sudden it'll bounce back and forth like in some side quest. It's just completely ridiculous and hilarious and like super Japanese, very very obscure. It's just that yeah, it's hard for like the games earlier in you kind of forget about them. That happens in a lot of words. Like that's like a problem where like you know you just kind of forget. Like it was hard for me to remember. Like I had to like scroll through. Like this is like my list of. I mean this doesn't include Steam, but yeah, this is like you like forget all the games you played sometimes even, and then especially the ones at the beginning of the year. And so for a game like Yakuza, which was an early release, it to stick with you, it really has to be impactful. And then yeah, Metaphor was that more of the end of the year, and that one was really great. That's if you've played Persona, it's medieval Persona, and which the Persona games are great, and like it just has some iterative improvements over Persona. And like one of the big kind of like day-to-day, like your daily life add-on improvements that was just like really cool, I thought, was like when you like the way you travel around, and it's like you know like a journey slash kind of road trip, and you got to plan it out because every like every act, like every event you do basically takes up half a day. So like there's like these trips are like multi days, so you go like plan out like which dungeons you go to, and what quests you do, and like when you go on like the main quest, you know it might take like 4 or 5 days to get to the next place, and you encounter all these things and stuff, and it levels up your characters. It's really cool, and the story in that's great. The music, like the original soundtrack. Like I had that as like my best. I couldn't remember many of the original soundtracks. That's why I only listed 2. If like let me know in the comments if you can think of any, or if any of these other ones like stand out. It's just like the Metaphor one had some really good original tracks, and then Indiana Jones was just like. It's just classic movie score, and they just nailed it on that. Like it's not You know, like it just fits the game and the setting perfectly. And then let's see. Yeah, so number 3 is Unicorn Overlord. That's like a strategy game. Let's see if it's like way down here. Let's get the image up. I must have passed it. Maybe it's, yeah. See, I don't think this. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, it's like it's if you ever, it's just like basically, if you ever played Ogre Battle 64, it's like a spiritual sequel to that, like gameplay wise, and it's got a really, you know, cool setting, cool setup. It's just like medieval strategy game. You like the kingdom gets taken over by the evil villain, and you got to go around to each territory and like slowly like get it back from nothing. Like you just start with like one small group of people, and you get like all, you know, a ton of different types of units and classes, and you can level them up. And you know, as you there's like, so there's tons of characters too, and everyone's voice acted, and the strategy element is really cool, and it could be extremely deep if you choose it to be, because you can like literally customize it to the level of like completely controlling like each character's if then statements, so like, which is basically like programming language. So but you don't have to do that to like beat it. Like by the end, like I just stopped, like I barely got into that really. Like I mean I got into it a little bit, but you don't really need it. So like by the end, like between like switching out characters and upgrading it so much, like you can just go with like their default actions, and really like just like when you get the occasional like, you notice like a pattern of like a character like you attacking or using a spell in like a useless way, then you just like change it. But yeah, because it's like the combat is like, it's like turn based, but it's automated. So like, but where you control it again is where you like you the way you equip your gear and stuff, and the positioning of the characters, and which characters you put in which party, and like they're again like they have like their if then statements, that it's just like the basic setup of like what that type of unit, and when it attacks and how it attacks, and then like you kind of like you strategize and you figure out that based on what like unit, like group of units you assemble together, and figure out like the best ones. And then like the overworld again, it's like Ogre Battle 64, where you have like all your groups of units, like, or your one unit is like the captain, and that represents the whole group. And then in the overworld, they're all over the place, and that's moving in real time. And certain like flying units obviously have better terrain movement, but then they're weak against like archers. And then so yeah, you gotta figure, there's all kinds of cool stuff. There's like little like, if there's someone sitting in like in a tower, you know, they're fortified, so they have like higher defense, and they're regenerating health constantly. And like a fortress, they'll have like even higher defense, so like you take over those key points. It's just like it was like a really great game. Like I'd been dying for that type of game for a really long time, so it was really close between that and Metaphor for my number 2 spot. Yeah, and then yeah, it's like I said, Indiana Jones. That was just a great game overall. Like way better than I thought it'd be. Great. It's just like it nails like it on every category. It's very good. Just like graphics, gameplay, the exploration, the characters, the writing, the music, the sound design. Like I put it as like, where's my sound on? Yeah, so I had it as like towards the top in sound design, and like, I mean, it was for the original soundtrack, there wasn't many of those, but for sound design it was genuinely good. Like the punches sound really great, and all the weapons and stuff, and the just like the music cues, like when you like do puzzles and like enter a new area and all that kind of stuff. And then Yeah, Black our History Untold. That's another strategy game. That's a 4X strategy game. That was actually my third most played game of the year, surprisingly. Like, so Yakuza was number one most played for hours. Metaphor was number two, and Ara was number three. And like, I'm not done with this game either. Like, yeah. So all those games were over 100 hours playtime. And yeah, it's just like yeah, it's like a very good, and the graphics are surprisingly good. Like the detail, like the thing that, like one of the big differences between this and other 4X games, like Civ, is um, the level of detail is crazy. Where you like, the more you zoom in, like it goes down to, to actual like individual people running around and doing their tasks, and like animals and vehicles and like stuff. Like it's very detailed, like and it runs surprisingly well despite that. Like you would think, like, because like of how shitty like Civ runs, and it's like way less detailed and it doesn't look as good, but R runs very well. And like other than that, yeah, it's like, yeah, again, like pretty similar, like pretty standard setup. Like the bigger difference I think is like cities can kind of grow. I don't want to say infinitely, but like, or like, oh yeah, so like the tiles are like they're not equally like hex shaped. They're like amalgams of shape. Yeah, they're just like almost like randomly shaped. It still like feels like hexes, but like one, when you expand to one area, maybe it's like a lot smaller and it has less like areas to build on, but it might have like a valuable resource you want, or like, and so like, it provides more food, so it might help you grow the city quicker, like all that stuff. It's kind of hard to describe without seeing a visual, but yeah, that was very good. And then so like, since I'm on like game of the year, like kind of a similar category is like the best games that I played that weren't from this year, because I got Game Pass, obviously, so you obviously get a lot of really great third party games that weren't like that released a year or more ago. Like Jedi Survivor was really good. Yeah, so I got like Pillars of Eternity 1 or 2, Assassin's Creed. So I'll just go over these real quick. So yeah, like my top two were Pillars of Eternity 1, 2, and 1. Like 1 I finished. I played mostly last year, but I did start in 2023. But most of it, I went through most of it last year. And then Pillars of Eternity 2, I mostly played at the end of this year, and then I finished in January. That's again like what I was saying. It's nice to give yourself like an extra time to finish this stuff. But yeah, these are the same universe that Avowed's going to be in. That's the upcoming game that's coming out this month in February. Avowed's the prequel to these two, and just these are like CRPGs, like a Baldur's Gate kind of game, like turn based, like more like D&D rule based games, and they're just really good. The story and the setting, like this universe, like is now my favorite fictional, like medieval. It's like my favorite fantasy universe now. It's so cool. It's like way cooler than the Elder Scrolls universe, or like Lord of the Rings, or anything like. Warcraft is like. Warcraft would have been still number one. Like, I love that universe, but like WoW kind of like butchered the Warcraft universe, where it made it like very silly and childish, unfortunately. But like, if that didn't happen, then Warcraft would be my favorite still. But what's cool about this universe is, one, it's actually like generally like there's even though there's writing where there's a lot of like comic relief throughout. Like the tone is very like serious, but the coolest thing for me is like I like superpowers and magic and stuff. I mean, that's like one of the backbones behind like what's cool about video games and fictional worlds. It's like it's something special beyond the real world. And in Pillars, it's like the magic is like a huge focus. As like it's just like really deep. Like the whole explanation, all the different types of magical classes. It's not like there's just like, oh, here's mages, and then that's it. It's like there's like mages, and there's this thing called an animancer, and there's ciphers, which are kind of like they specialize in like telepathic attacks and like illusions and stuff. And then yeah, like an animancer like is kind of mind related too. And then there's like I'm already forgetting the name of the music. There's like a musical magic, a magic musical class where like the way that the characters play out is like just completely different from anything I've ever seen in a game. Where like their attacks are like there's like a musical score sheet down at the bottom, and they have like enchantments that like they have to like say out like actually like. And so like the longer ones take like a long time. Like the ramp up to the attack is like it takes a lot longer than the other most magic attacks, but then they're like really powerful. And then like so they can like a big drawback too is they can get interrupted. And then you have like yeah, like just like a whole variety of like wizards, like archmages, mages. And then you got your wands and scepters. Like there's the variety of weapons like that the magic users use is big too. Or like you have like the tomes where you get your spells from, and you can like find those along the game. And so you have like your base spells that you learn that you get to choose, like, and based on your own like there's like subclasses like summoner. Like I like had my guys like one of his unique mage subclasses was summoning, so like he has extra summoning spells that other like magic users wouldn't, but in a penalty then he can't use certain attack magic spells. And then but you can also get these like tomes along the game, and like you know get better and better ones, and they have different spell sets, and like so you can use spells that you didn't like learn when you leveled up. Anyway, like I'm going to this was supposed to be quick. But yeah, anyway, those games were really good. If you do try them, Pillars of Eternity 1 is really hard. Like 2 is hard too, but like or the DLC for 2, like the expansions for 2 are hard. Like the base game is actually pretty easy, at least compared to 1 is very easy. And then but 1's just really hard for the whole way, and like 2 adds some quality of life things. That's why I put it above it, because the actual like the story I kind of liked a little bit more in 1, but I like the setting of 2 more. It's like it's a bunch of islands. It's the Deadfire. It's like archipelago. I can always say that word. It's archipelago. It's like yeah, you know, like it's the word for a cluster of islands, and like so it's like a pirate setting, but obviously there's like this game's based largely around magic. And then yeah, so the end 2 is like kind of revolving around like you're trying to stop a god from destroying the whole world. And I never like in games where you're fighting against a force of nature or like a literal god. It's just kind of boring, where it's like your character is either like nothing, so you have to find like some random exception how you could beat them. So it's like the path to victory seems linear, or it's like oh yeah, like this thing that should be able to just destroy you with like a thought or a whim, like realistic. Like if there was no plot armor, that's what would happen. You just instantly die in the beginning of the game or the first time you encountered it, and you would never have a chance. So you have to like find like the one miracle way, and it's like, okay, so obviously you're gonna get that, and it's like you usually like in those games like or in those scenarios like it's just like so, it's a boring undeveloped character or entity, and it's like it just completely like ruins the game. Like that's like one of the fault in the Persona games is they always devolve into like they have like these amazing villains and stuff they develop in characters, and then they just completely throw it away, and like the last like act is against a force of nature that has like no personality or purpose. Like I mean it has like I know the purpose is like each one is like representing like like emotion or like inhumanity. It's like the collective emotion, but it's like that's not compelling, and it's like it's not a character you don't care about like defeating the character or the thing. And like again, like when you encounter it, it's like it feels like your character shouldn't even be able to beat it, but you just like you do, and it doesn't make any sense. But at least in Pillars of Eternity 2, like this god, like you can continually have back and forth conversations, and you feel like you could convince them to change. You actually literally can, like you basically, but like yeah, like so there's a little more, but again, like that's why I like the story of 1 is not so much that it's there's like an actual like just main villain that you're like that's more on your level. He's literally like the same, like a watcher just like you, so you're like you feel like more on par with him. And it's like he obviously starts off with like in a powerful organization, and you're like by yourself, so you build up, but like that kind of setting is better. So yeah, I got a little off track there. I'm just trying to think. Oh yeah, it's just like I put Mortal Avium. Like I think this is the most underrated game in the last few years. Like it's genuinely like it was really good. Like good gameplay. It ran well. Like at least when I played it after they added the FSR 3 support. So like it went from like not performing very well to running a like smooth 60 FPS on console. But yeah, the actual the main characters, especially like this is like probably my favorite main character in like the last few years I could think of. It's for once like the writing in the story is really good, like in the characters. And the thing I like about it and like about the main character so much is when he comes into like these situations, like normally in a video game, like especially like more so lately in like when like writing has gotten really vanilla, like there's like all these situations where you're like, why wouldn't you do this, or why wouldn't you think to try this or say this? And like this character does and says all those things, like the things that are like that in a normal game would be obvious for you to be like, this makes no sense, why is this happening, why wouldn't he just interrupt here and like say this and like bring up this point? And then like and he does that, and so it makes the character feel like way more realistic, and also the plot seem more realistic and makes sense. And I wish more games would do that. And like because most games just get so caught up in like, well, we have to get the character to, go to the lava mountain, and if he won't do that, if he like finds a loophole in like why he shouldn't go there. But like this game is just like, yeah, again, like pretty much everything he does and says like makes sense. Like there's reasons behind, like logical reasons behind all of his actions, and it, yeah. I just really like the main character, and well, the side characters are great too. And then the gameplay is like smooth, like, and it's cool. It's basically like, it's a first person shooter where you have magic powers, and like you have all these hand motions and stuff, and your guns are just basically different magic powers. And then Assassin's Creed Valhalla, they added that to Game Pass. And this specifically, I want to note that this is the definitive edition that has all the DLC and expansions, because with those, like, the game was really good, but like if they didn't have some of those, like some of the stuff where you go into Valhalla and all that, then it would have felt like kind of like a little like empty and like lackluster without the DLC. But with all the expansions, at least it was really good. And then yeah, Atlas Fallen, that was let's see, I'll bring up the image of that because most people won't even know what the hell this game is. But this is another one that's very underrated, like one of the more underrated games of the last few years. It might still be in Game Pass. I'm not positive because I beat it a while ago. Like that's how I played it, is because like I would have never played it either, like because it got like, I think it got like high sixes, like low sevens or high sixes around there, like the Metacritic. Yeah, it's basically just like a 3D, I mean like a open world third person action game where you get like, you know, powers and abilities. It's very like Immortals Phoenix Rising or something like that, like, which is a lot like Breath of the Wild. But there's like the combat in it is really good. It's the combat's actually better than I'd say all those games. I mean, Immortals Phoenix Rising was pretty good. Like it's pretty smooth, but like just like the abilities are really cool, and like the way you can choose like which ones to like focus into like can like make a big difference. But yeah, the combat's really satisfying. There's like big boss fights and stuff, and the story's all right too. It's not great, but it's like you know, it's like there's more of a story than in Zelda, and like I don't know, somehow that game is a 9.5. And I'm not saying like you have to have a story to have it be that, but like to me, like the Breath of the Wild's like a 7 out of 10 right now. Like if you played it today, like all these other open world games are just like better in almost every way. Yeah, and then I'd say like Diablo 4, I got to that late, and that was a nice, good, solid, fun game. Jedi Star Wars Survivor, same thing. Like, yeah, good all around. Like, I liked it a lot better than the first one. Like the balancing felt a lot better. Where like the first one tried too hard to be too much Souls-like, and the second or this one was like just, it's like, okay, let's just be a good game. And like, so it was a lot better than the first the Jedi game. And then yeah, Tales of Arise, that's like a JRPG. And then War Tales, that's like a strategy game that's really good. This one I'm not too deep into, so I want to get back into that. It's really fun and addictive. It's like it's a really hardcore survival where you know you can lose any character permanently, and the battles are like really tough, and like you have to like at least on the difficulty I'm playing on. I know you can like play it on easier, but like just the day-to-day like survival is hard. And yeah, like Callisto Protocol, nice. It's a lot like Dead Space. It was like I think that game's also underrated. Not like a nice solid game. So yeah, like I'm not gonna go over all the list like this like I did with those two like in detail, like because that kind of just, you know, I kind of cross covered everything with like like I said with the soundtrack. And then if there's like questions about this, like these three, how there's like 3 for graphics basically, it's because so like highest visual fidelity, like I wanted to recognize the art more than like the Game Awards focus on random shit like best streamer and stuff like that. And they don't even focus on the art. And I would have a credit category for programming too, but that's not my field of expertise. So like that would be like features and like how well something runs and stuff. But I could have done something like that maybe next time. But yeah, for highest visual fidelity is like, that's just like how good something, like you'll see something in motion, you see it in a still shot of it, you just like pause, you look into a vista, you look at the close-up of a character. It's like how visually impressive is it, like the level of detail, yeah, like, yeah, how it runs. But like mostly like it's just like the level of detail is like the most important. It's like how amazing does this thing, like this character, the detail, the how's the hair flowing, and the like when you zoom in on any random area, you walk through an area, the lighting, not necessarily like, whereas the art direction is like basically it's like the best visual style, that's like the most appealing, like it just on visual style, not like necessarily like I said, fidelity. It's like the my like top three here are all like stylized. Yeah, it's a very stylized, clean. The character design, like the designs of the characters, more as opposed to the specifically like the details and fidelity of the character. And then yeah, it's like Black Myth I thought was like both, and again that's where I was saying like I don't need to play Black Myth Wukong to know that, like, yeah, like the visual fidelity was incredible, only second to Hellblade, and then but the art direction was really cool. That's why it's like best overall graphics is like the combination of the two, and that's why I put it at number one. Is like because Hellblade 2 is hands down like the best visually, like the highest bar in visuals ever in a game, but Black Myth Wukong isn't that far behind, and on top of that it has like really grand like scenery and characters and fight sequences, and like yeah, just like the character designs and like the environments are like a lot much more interesting. But yeah, again, like with Hellblade 2, this is like the first time in a long time where I'm just completely blown away by the graphics, where just constantly, like throughout the entire game, there was never, even through rolling credits, there was never a time when it stopped being like where you're going through an area or looking at something or the character where you're just like, holy shit, this is like the best, like this is, I can't believe this is a game. Or like, and you like, what's cool about it is at any moment, even including during any cinema, you can pause it and you can move the camera around, zoom in, out, like move it around to a completely different part of the scene. You can add in your own lighting and stuff too if you want, like change it and change the coloring, and it's just crazy. And like the photo mode is like unprecedented good. But yeah, it's like the detail is so insane, where like you could like come out of a cave and then like you can pause it and move the camera around the scene, and like you go up above the cave, way above it, where you were never, like you can't even get to in the game, like zoom in on the grass and the rocks, and it's like in like insane detail, like it looks like real life in part of the game where you wouldn't even see that. Or like there'll be like characters way in the background, like there's like the scene with like the giant, and you can like pause it in the middle of that and then bring it all the way over to the side to the character farthest away that you can only see like in the distance, and he's like, the detail and visual fidelity on that character is higher than like anything in any other game, like as the main character in any other game. Like it's like that crazy. So like yeah, that's to me like that's like hands down like that should be recognized. And like it's like a shame that the Game Awards doesn't recognize like stuff like that. They just focus on advertising. They like read. They'll like read like like these all these awards like off screen and shit. Like it's embarrassing. And then I had like best premise and best plot and story. Like I put like I was gonna separate plot and story, but it's kind of like there's just a lot of crossover, so I just kind of combined them all into one. Um, yeah, I really liked Infinite Wealth's. Yeah, the character, like all the characters, like you love them or hate them so much, or like by the end of it, like or during it, like they change too. Like they develop. Like there's characters you start out hating, you end up liking. There's characters you liked at first, and then they betray, like through betrayal and other reasons, like you end up hating them. And they like so like they have like a lot of those characters that swing, which is really impressive. And yeah, like I said, like Ichiban's the most likable character ever, and so that helps out. Like yeah, it's like that's done a lot by the writing and the story. He's just like he's such a good dude. And then yeah, just like the like the way it's carried out like throughout, where you know like I can't really get too much into on specifically on Infinite Wealth without spoiling a lot of the story, but like just like the plot points of the story of like how it carries out, like I really liked a lot. And then Metaphor, you've probably heard a lot about that, like how like the villain I have like up here is like my the second best villain of the year. Yeah, great villain, great setup. Like yeah, you're on a quest in medieval fantasy magic. You're on a quest to go around and stop this guy from becoming king. Basically, is the first quest, and then like it's I can say this because it's pretty early on, but like pretty like very early on. Like another part is like a campaign to become king, and like that's like a really interesting thing. It's like you're running a political campaign basically as part of the story, and it's like it's pretty cool. And then Hellblade 2 is just like yeah, it's like yeah, it just really hits like emotionally. Like again, like the character writing in it, like the new guy that's the slaver. I'm forgetting his name right now. Yeah, like that they do a lot of character development in this, and I like there's a lot of like obviously Senua is the main character, and like she goes through new stuff and compared to the last game, but I liked how there's actual other characters as opposed to the first one where that are involved, and those characters get development, like particularly like the guy I was talking about. And then yeah, you're doing Chronicles 100 Heroes Rising. That was an RPG, came out earlier in the year. Like it's got a really cool premise. Like I put that as my number 3 best premise. Yeah, it's just like it has like so many characters. Like it's lower on the list because like it's just really cool how many characters there are, and they're all voice acted, and they all contribute to the story. And there's this like yeah, it's like the overall plot of the story as you go on, like where you're trying to fight back and like save the kingdom, and as you go into each territory and you try to get support from more people. There's just so many characters in it, but like it's that strength is also its weakness, where it's like because there's like 100 characters or literally 100 playable characters, like they're not as developed. But I like that there is a game like that, and there should be more games like that where like let's have one where you just get like a shitload of characters. And so that was cool. And then yeah, so what else I got? Yeah, best premise was like kind of related, but like the other reason I put this as its own because like I could think about this list a little more. Like I kind of threw this with the other fest, but this is basically like just like the best premise for a video game, and that doesn't necessarily have to be have a good relate to story or plot, but it's just like, okay, what's just like a cool setup for a game. And I had a lot of these that are just crossed over from this plot and story because so obviously our is just like, yeah, you're starting a civilization from scratch. Like like if War Tales was from this year, I would have put that on there too. Like just, yeah, you're roaming around the countryside, you're just fighting to survive and like encountering bandits and stuff and taking on jobs. Yeah, it's just like the best excuse for a game. And then yeah, it's the best strategy. Unicorn, Kunitsugami are and I just had like these quick mentions where like some of these it's like things where I just didn't have enough time, or I mean, or like I didn't play enough games in the category, or there just wasn't enough new ones, so I just like, yeah, that not much new there. And so like, yeah, the fun stuff, yeah, it's pretty self or explanatory, except for if you're confused about this stuff. Yeah, like I tried to be cryptic because like, yeah, the 4, 5, and 6, like they're all from Infinite Wealth also. Oh, so it was 3, but these ones, like if I specifically say which one is which, and like it's actually a spoiler to even say that they're a villain because like I was saying earlier, how like characters swing, so I don't want to like say which characters do or don't become a villain. And so if you played the game, and if you read these parentheses, like you'll know who I'm talking about. And then yeah, Voss from Indiana Jones I put as 1 because he's just a classic great villain where you just like really hate him and you really want to beat him and kill him, and you want the main character to win because of him. Like because of him, you want the main character to win that much more. And now obviously he's a Nazi too, so like that adds to it. That's kind of like a cheap ad, but like it's less of that, but more of like if you play the game, you'll know like, yeah, he's really shitty and you really hate him. And then Luis was a close 2. I thought a lot of people would have him as 1. I thought about it because he's like the villain where you're like, a lot of people have said like, oh yeah, you think he's right all the time or a lot, but like, which you do sometimes you agree with what he's saying or doing, but like it wasn't as, that pull wasn't as strong as like a character like Magneto or something. Like Magneto's a classic example, is like one of the best villains of all time, where like you really agree with like what Magneto says and does like a lot of times, and you're like think like, okay, his strategy, his thoughts, his beliefs are correct, and like we should go with what he's doing. But Luis is a little less so on that, where you're like he does it in a way and he comes off such like an asshole and like inhumane about it, where you're like, like I can't get behind that. But like, I mean, that's obviously that makes him a bad guy, which makes him a good villain also, so like can't really lose on that front. But like, so yeah, he's good. And then Yami from Infinite Wealth, he's like yeah, he's just so great. You have to play. He's like the gangster who's like he's like kind of a loose cannon, and like he's another character that kind of swings back and forth, where you're like, oh, he's like the enemy, my enemy is my friend, oh, is he gonna betray me? And like he's a wild card, and like, you know, you fight him a bunch of times, and he's like a thorn in your side too, and he's really charismatic, and the voice actor is really good. And yeah, he's like a badass fighter too. But he's a code. He's one of those like the bad guy with the code, and you respect his code so much that you're like, okay, like even though we're against him, I like him. And then yeah, some others like the Unicorn Overlord and 100 Years villains were they weren't amazing, but they were like, they served their purpose. Like you don't like, you really don't like the yeah, like you really want to beat, they make you want to beat them, at the very least. And then like I said before, with like I talked about how Ichiban's like the most likable character ever, and then Itachi, his bestie, the real best friend, not friggin' Nanba, who's one of the worst bros. Like, yeah, he's on here. In Infinite Wealth, he didn't do Ichiban dirty, but he doesn't help out that much. Like, he's absent for most of it, and I'm not gonna forget what he did in Yakuza 7. So like, he's on the shit list forever for that. And then yeah, Stroll, man, like Stroll's great. Like that was like one of the other things I kind of mentioned in like story and game of the year and stuff like that. Took a hit a little bit, whereas like Stroll feels like the main character, and he actually should have been. And they should have just named the main character Stroll, and then like I don't know, like yeah, you'll see like the speeches he gives, like his honor, like he's an actual noble. He's a noble that's actually noble, and like he's like the first ally you get, or wait, second, first or second, I don't know, but he's there from the beginning. He's like a bro. He never falters. He never like he never even thinks of like betraying you or letting you down. And like the back and forth like conversations he has with the other villains, and like especially like there's like one scene with like Luis where it's like everything he's saying sounds like something like a great main character would say in a really good speech, and he's saying it here, and then like, so why isn't this the main character? And like there is a reason why you'll see, you kind of like you don't really get the real reason why it's like why the Stroll isn't the main character, or like or isn't the one that should be like running for king, because that's how you feel too, is like he's the one that should be the candidate at the very least. If he's not the main character, he should have been the candidate based on the circumstances to be king, up until like there is a point in the story where you're like, okay, like now it's gonna work better and it makes more sense if the main character is the main character. But yeah, he's great. And then yeah, Yamai. Did I say I said Yami before. Did I say Yami? Yeah, his name is pronounced Yamai. I can't believe I said like Yami. Yeah, that's right. He's one of the best villains and one of the best dudes. So. And then Indiana Jones, he's a classic. The character is written really well in that game. It's classic Indiana Jones, just like the original movies. And then yeah, so I go the best girl. Yeah, she's a ride or die, Melisandre from Unicorn Overlord, and Gina is great in Indiana Jones. Can't go wrong with Senua. Yeah, she's a beast, and actually she shows a lot of improvement in this game, and that was great to see. And then Scarlet from Unicorn Overlord, she's like she's like the girl I think they want you to choose, but like she's a good friend, but she's not good on the other side. And Hulkenberg from Metaphor, she's pretty great all around. Like I said, like she's a lot like Stroll in a lot of ways, but she's a little too by the book and unreasonable in certain areas. So like she's not as good as Stroll, but she's still great. And then Soon-hee from Infinite Wealth, back from the 7. Yeah, Leanne from Unicorn Chronicles. That's like the childhood best friend. Well, no, not childhood, but like you meet her in the beginning of the game. But like, she's basically like the best friend character. She's like, but she's fun about it too. And then the rest of the list, this list is longer than most of them because I wanted to include some too that were, for reasons they're nominated. Looks do matter too. Like just they don't have anything else going for them, except for I threw Chitose on there. She's on there as one of the worst too. You just have to see to find it. Yeah, looks got her onto the best girl list, but she's also one of the worst too. She's one of the worst, and one doesn't need to be explained. Just Google it. You type this into YouTube. I don't even need to explain it to you. And then Psycho from Infinite Wealth, worst girlfriend of all time in a video game. One of them, anyway. You're like constantly rooting for her to not be with Ichiban, and for Ichiban to get someone else. Like you actively root for him to get with Chitose, who you also hate, and does him dirty multiple times. But that's like a better match, and a better result for him than Psycho. And then, yeah, like I said, Namba, never forget Depresso. All right. Peace out.